Hello, everyone, and welcome to Birth Your Vision podcast. I am so excited to see you all here today. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with us on this special edition of another podcast. And so today I am so delighted to actually bring you a wonderful guest, and we will talk about, many of the newest business trends and of course tactics and features of different types of new business tools in today's podcast. And also we have a special guest who is going to be talking all about PR, personal PR. So today we have an amazing, wonderful guest who is a seasoned expert in personal PR strategy. And with over 15 years of experience as a PR executive for world-renowned brands such as Fiat, Peugeot and Singapore Airlines, she knows how to make any story newsworthy. And so today, Jessica Fabrizi, founder of JFab Personal PR, is a personal PR strategist who helps personal brands growth hack their visibility and credibility so that they can actually skyrocket their income and impact. And so she has also helped countless clients to be able to build a personal brand, establish themselves as thought leaders, and connect with key influencers and decision makers in their industries. And so today she is going to be talking all about thought leadership, media relations, super connecting, and personal branding. Our guest has a wealth of knowledge and expertise to share. Jessica has a deep understanding of what it takes to be able to create a successful PR campaign, and is always staying up to date with the latest trends, best practices in the industry. So in today's podcast episode, we will be sharing all the top tips and insights on how to build a strong personal brand, establish yourself as a thought leader, and leverage your network to be able to achieve your goals. And so come along with me on this journey. You don't want to miss it. So grab your pen and your paper and let's get ready. So welcome to the platform. It's good to see you, Jessica.
Oh my God, what an introduction. Thank you so much. To see your audience as well. I mean, I don't see you guys, but I know that you've seen us, and this is delightful to be in your presence somehow, indirectly in your presence. And I'm very in your presence very directly. So thank you so much for this lovely introduction. Thank you so much for inviting me on the show.
You are super welcome. Thank you so much for attending today. And I just want to say thank you so much because I was previously on your PR personal show. It was truly amazing. Thanks for having me. And this is the power of working together, joint relationship, joint collaboration and ventures. This is what happens when you're able to, support one another's business and also cross promote. So I'm so glad that I'm able to have you on this platform today. And so, yes, Jessica, we are talking all about personal PR. You are the queen. You are the queen of personal PR, and you're going to be taking us through different types of ways to be able to become even more visible within your business. And so, you've been in PR for quite a long time. You've got over 15 years of experience, which is incredible, by the way. And I love your energy, and I love the way in which you, show up powerfully, authentically, and also with confidence on your Facebook page, which is amazing. So well done. And we are so delighted to have you. So to all our guests, welcome. If you have any questions, please leave them in the chat so that we can actually ask Jessica. And so let's get started. So Jessica, I want to know, how did you first become interested in personal PR? And what is it that really led you to actually focus on thought leadership, on media relations, super connecting, and personal branding?
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. This is such a good question because this is my origin story, so to say, and everybody should have an origin story when they have a personal brand.
Right.
So my origin story is, usually we tell a story in 3 phases, like it's the hero's journey. Probably you've heard of it, Hannah. I'm sure you've heard of it, and many of your members of the audience have heard it as well. So basically, the hero's journey is made by 3 stages. There's the challenge, the initial challenge, and then there's choice that you make called a pivotal moment that changes things, and then there's an outcome, right? So in my case, I have been very, very happy in PR for many, many years. And, I work with the best brands. Singapore Airlines is the most awarded airline in the world. And I was there for 6 years. It was like a dream come true for me. And also at the same time, though, I did have a little bit of a challenge when I turned 40, which was about 1.5 years ago, because I noticed that my values were shifting. And
Right.
I had frequented the coaching industry for a while, for about 10 years as a consumer. And I was attracted to join it actually as an active member. And at the same time, when you turn 40, then probably your values, your priorities change as well. And I really wanted to, help people make an impact and a positive impact in the world, right?
Yeah.
So being in corporate for me wasn't on brand and on purpose anymore. Right. So I decided, that was a pivotal moment, the choice that I made. I decided that I didn't want to position and promote companies anymore, but I wanted to position and promote people. And the outcome, you see it today, because this is what I'm doing. I founded Personal PR, which, by the way, is not something that existed before. It's a new concept. I call it Personal PR, and to me, it means PR for personal brands, basically. And it could be, entrepreneurs and coaches and consultants. And so these are the people that I serve today. In terms of how I got close to also thought leadership and media relations and super connecting, well, there's a few reasons. So we talked about personal branding. So my wish to serve personal brands. And I noticed as well, when I joined this industry as an active member, that it's not enough to be an expert in something these days in order to be newsworthy, in order to be, let's say, to get attention. It's not anymore, because there's simply too many people. Maybe 7-8 years ago, it would have simply been possible, to get visibility just because you're an expert at something. But these days, it's not enough anymore. So you really have to add, thought leadership to personal branding. You can't do personal branding anymore and say, okay, I'm a personal brand, I'm an expert in this area and so on. No, you have to become a thought leader. You have to, I say, to graduate, to elevate your brand from expert to thought leader. And a thought leader is somebody who's actually who brings innovation into a certain field, who adds something to the body of knowledge of that particular field, to the conversation in that particular field. Whereas the expert is very knowledgeable about that field, but not necessarily do they have any addition to make, to the body of knowledge of that field. So when we make an addition to the field, and we have to see how we make it, because I created a process in order to do so. But when you have a breakthrough idea and you bring it to let's say, to that field, to that area, then you become newsworthy, right? And then you can get attention and you can get visibility. Because everything I look at, to be honest, Hannah, I look at everything with, the glasses. These glasses tell me, okay, how can I make something newsworthy? So wherever I go, whichever industry I go to, I'm always asking myself, okay, how can I make this person in this industry or this company in this industry newsworthy? That is my field of expertise, right? So we talked about personal branding, we talked about thought leadership. When it comes to media relations, well, public relations is all about media relations, right? So in public relations, you do have a few stakeholders that you want to serve, but the media are certainly the number one audience. And with media, we mean the press, and at the same time, these days, we also mean influencers. And the last thing is super connecting. So I established a reputation for myself over the past 10 years as a global super connector. So I was networking locally here in Switzerland, where I've been based for 16 years. I've been, networking globally, online and offline. Up to the pandemic, I was basically jet setting all the time for Singapore Airlines, but then for, privately as well, for personal reasons as well. And I managed to create this amazing network, really, really super global in all continents. Like, it happened very, very often as well, that I was in like 5 continents within 2 weeks, for example. That was my life up until COVID. And when COVID hit, Hannah, to be honest, I was actually happy, because I wasn't happy about COVID itself, but I was happy about the fact that I was able to spend a few months in the same time zone. That was such luxury for me, because to be constantly jet lagged is not fun. It's not fun, it really. So basically, I had to bring this dimension of my nature, like the super connected dimension, into my model for personal PR as well. Because networking is super important for everybody, for companies, for people. But I think especially for entrepreneurs, for personal brands, networking is even more important, because we are people. We can't count on a company. We are the person, and we represent our company. We're a personal brand. We're the face of the company, and we have to network, right? It's really a must. And there are so many things that you can do with networking. It's about partnerships. It's about, community building. We all want to build a community these days. We all want to have strategic partnerships. There are so many things that I'm sure that we will get to talk about in the next few minutes. But this is like a general introduction, and these are the areas that I brought together and created this methodology that I developed in order, to establish personal PR, to establish your visibility and credibility.
I love it. Absolutely. You were able to cover each one so concisely. Thought leadership, media relations, super connecting, which is networking as well, and personal branding. So PR is not just public relations. There's so many layers to it. And I'm really glad that you're able to kind of take us through that journey and understand what it means to be visible, really, and which is really powerful. And so, some people may have some common mistakes, in terms of when they are trying to build their personal brand or to establish themselves as a thought leader in their industry. So, what are some of the most common mistakes that people, usually make when they're trying to kind of build their own personal brand or even establish themselves as a thought leader within their industry?
Yeah, this is so good. Such a good question, because I really see it all the time. I really see a few mistakes all the time, but the one that I see the most is that people want to get visibility just for what they are, who they are, and what they do, and without really adding value, right? So you think, oh, here I am, and everybody should talk about me, and they don't even strategize what is it that their values are, their story is, their mission is, and so on. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, also, it's about these days, it's about graduating from the expert to the thought leader, right? So it's about bringing thought leadership basically into personal branding. These days, personal branding, let me tell you, I've been dealing with this for 1.5 years intensively as well. And I've noticed, if you are only out there and you don't really have an idea, but you really position yourself as a person, right? Then not many people will be interested, especially not third-party channels, right? And we will talk about that in a second, but I have my definition of omnipresence. Like, a lot of people are talking about omnipresence these days, Hannah, and they're saying, okay, in order to be omnipresent, you have to be on all social media channels. Maybe you've heard this theory before. And I say, well, it's great if you can be on all social media platforms, why not? But it's not enough, because there are third-party channels as well. You don't just want to be on on the channels that you own, because this doesn't really give you a lot of credibility, because you can publish anything on these channels, right? So we have to be able to be invited to covered, featured on third-party channels as well, channels that are not ours. We'll have time to talk about this later, right? And yes, and I have seen that if you really want to, of course, add value to your audience when it comes to your own channels, but especially to be featured on third-party channels, if you just pitch them, Hannah, and you say, hi, that's me, I am I don't know, this is what I do, I'm a life coach, and so on. This is not newsworthy, but if you are a life coach and you have really built thought leadership and you have a breakthrough idea that is really adding something to the conversation in your field, right, to the body of knowledge of that particular field, this is where you become newsworthy. This is where you become interesting, and that's where people will follow you more on your own channels. But this is also where third-party channels will be interested in inviting you, covering you, and featuring you. Yes. So I would say this is the biggest mistake that I see in personal branding. Now, when it comes to the biggest mistake in thought leadership, let's say that somebody got it. Okay, I have to become a thought leader. And what I see, Hannah, is that they only, let's say, bring a breakthrough idea, propose a breakthrough idea that is only relevant, let's say, for that field. This is already great. We have to have a breakthrough idea that is relevant for the field, because we have just established that the breakthrough idea has to bring some innovation and basically add something to the conversation, to the body of knowledge of that field. Absolutely. But then, to me, it looks like anybody else could have had that breakthrough idea, right? So what I'm interested in, and I know that really works with the audience, own channels, third-party channels, is, why was it, I always ask the person, why was it you and nobody else who had this breakthrough idea? So what in your personal or professional life led you to having this breakthrough idea, right? And this is where we really bring the person, like the personal brand, so to say, into the thought leader. And this is where we can connect with people, let's say, on an emotional level, because we're talking about ourselves. We're talking about, we mentioned the hero's journey as well, like our story, right? So when we tell a story, we're able to engage our audience on an emotional level. And of course, we will also engage them on a rational level when we talk about the breakthrough idea and what is relevant for the field. Definitely it's more rational. But we know at the end of the day that we make decisions emotionally and then we justify them rationally, right? So we definitely have to involve the emotions as well. Yes. So that there needs to be a mix. There needs to be, like, let's say, a double layer: emotions and rationality as well. So this is what I would say is a winning strategy when it comes to thought leadership these days.
Absolutely. I mean, I love what you said in regards to there are other third parties, and I think sometimes some of us are not aware of those third parties. And I would love you to go into that. You know, who are the third parties in terms of personal PR, personal branding?
Yeah, there can be so many. So basically, we are talking about visibility, right? Because the third parties can be so many. We can have so many different stakeholders.
Yes.
But now we're focusing on visibility, right? So basically, we're talking about media channels. And this is why we're talking about publicity. This is like the let's say the outcome of public relations is publicity, when you are featured on third-party channels, basically.
Yes.
And we call it also earned media, because you are getting media space, let's say, on a channel that is not yours, is third party, but you didn't buy it. It's not like advertising space. You're a marketer and then you buy advertising space in a magazine, for example. No, with PR, you actually earn it, right? You earn it because you have a good story and you have a relationship to the journalist or to the influencer, for that matter, right? So you earn it. It's called earned media or publicity. So there is a publicity pyramid, Hannah. And so it starts like with, let's say, a broad layer, and then it goes up and up and up until you reach a peak, right? And let's start from the bottom. I'm just going to mention a few layers. For example, you go on live stream with a friend of yours, just on Instagram, you just go on a live stream. This is not your channel. It's a third party, because it's your friend that is simply inviting you into their live streams. Exactly. Then, of course, like the higher we go, the more prestigious, so to say, it gets, and the more difficult it gets to actually be featured there. But you can be, for example, invited to a podcast. You can be invited, you can write, let's say, as a contributing writer to a blog, or maybe even to a publication, maybe a little bit more of a high profile publication. Or you can be invited to a conference as well as a keynote speaker. Basically, that stage is a third party channel as well. That stage is not yours. It's somebody else's. It's the organizer, right? Yeah, they're inviting you to speak on that stage. That is third party channel as well. And then, of course, like the most prestigious stage is, of course, the TEDx stage, or even the TED stage. That's what everybody wants to be, a TEDx speaker. And then as we continue going up on the publicity pyramid, this is where, for example, we get featured in the press. And it could be online, online articles. It can be offline articles. Usually print is more prestigious than online, because it's more difficult to achieve, right? And it can be newspapers, it can be magazines. And then we continue and we go up and we reach the peak. And this is where we get on TV. And it's, of course, very, very difficult to get there, but very, very prestigious as well. And, the higher we go in the publicity pyramid, Hannah, the higher our credibility will be as well. Because it's like the more difficult it is, the higher our credibility, our prestige and credibility will be. So, for example, if you are covered on a magazine or a newspaper or on TV, nobody from the audience will question, even for a second, that you are an expert or a thought leader at what you do. They won't question for a second your expertise, because they'll be like, oh my God, they have been invited to TV, maybe even mainstream media, mainstream TV, right? Of course, the reporters or the journalists have made their research and they vetted you, right? If they want to invite you to the show, right? So the credibility will be instant, right? So this is why being featured on third-party channels is really an integral part of visibility, and this is actually what gives us credibility. So if we want credibility, we have to be featured on third-party channels.
I love that. That is really amazing. Many people don't really know that there's different levels to that, isn't it? That is so good. Such an amazing tips and strategy that you're sharing with us today. So make sure that you keep notes, because there are different strategies. So think about the kind of strategy that you want to implement as a business owner. If you want to get to that sort of highest level to be on TV, well, there are so many stages before you can actually get there. So make sure that you do listen to this podcast so that you can know what to do and how to do those things. Yeah, absolutely. So do you enjoy what you do, and what is it that motivates you?
Oh my God, Anna, I love it. I love it. I work every day, to be honest. I wake up in the morning and I already start, because my team is in the Philippines. So I have my relationship manager and executive assistant in the Philippines, and then I have my COO in Boston, and I'm in the middle, and we span 13 time zones. So I'm always working from the moment I wake up at 5 a.m. I'm already working, and then I work until 10 or 11 when I go to bed, and I'm still working with my COO because she's in Boston, right? So I'm working all the time, but I'm having the time of my life. Everybody's having so much fun. We're constantly creating new things, and yes, we're like volcanoes. And our motto, Hannah, if you want to know, is called "Just freaking ship it." You know, like Seth Godin said, just go and ship your stuff, your programs, products, whatever, right, that you have. And we're like, let's just ship it. And we are able to go from idea to like shipping something in like 48 hours when it comes to programs or something. Yes, because we work on weekends as well. Just saying.
You're very busy and very energetic as well. You know, I've seen you in action in terms of your interview, and you're very much laid back. And that's really amazing in terms of how you just show up, and you just kind of, you're so positive as well, which is so good. And yeah, I just wanted to know more in regards to, you know, how do you kind of measure the success of a personal PR campaign? And, you know, what are the different types of matrix that you may typically use to basically track the success of that?
Yes. So basically, the methodology that I use for we talked about omnipresence, right? So let's say the ingredients of personal PR for me are, let's say, personal branding, thought leadership, media relations, and super connecting, right? So I bring them all together, and there's a formula that I use. First of all, we have to do like a really good and clean positioning exercise. We have to determine the positioning, the branding, the messaging. That needs to be clear. And usually, like in my mastermind, I take about 2 months just to do that, because it's super important, because I see so many people that are going out there to get visibility. Some of them are even getting all of this visibility, but they're not solid when it comes to their brand. They're not solid when it comes to their breakthrough idea, thought leadership. They haven't really codified their intellectual property. They haven't created frameworks and models and neologisms around all of this. And there's no clear messaging and so on, right? So that needs to be in place. Now, when we go out, we have something solid and like some solid thought leadership. Then we go out and we want to promote it, of course. And we promote it through omnipresence, right? We talked about this before. And omnipresence is not just being on different social media platforms, but it's really composed by 3 dimensions. I call them the 3 dimensions of visibility. Number 1, own the channels that we own, right? We have a login, we have, I don't know, like credentials, login data. We log into a certain account. The account is, we have control over that account. We decide what gets published there, right? So that needs to be in place as well, because this is, so to say, our online presence is like a business card that we have, right? Somebody goes on our Instagram, they have to be able to see what we're all about, right? Okay, so then we go to third-party channels, which is the second dimension of visibility, and something that we have talked about a few minutes ago. And then another thing that I add, the third dimension of visibility to me is relationships, because this is where I take my hat off of the publicist and I put my hat on of the global super connector. As we know, I'm all about networking. I've noticed as well, if you really want to get visible, you have to be able to establish the right relationships as well. You have to be able to be visible to certain people in your field. If you want to establish yourself as a thought leader, an expert, an authority in your field, then it's not enough to have, owned channels that talk about that certain field, or to be featured on publications or media that pertain to, that are operating in that certain field. But also you have to know the key players in that field. You have to know them personally. and they have to know you, and they have to know your breakthrough idea, right? If you want them to consider you as a thought leader who has a breakthrough idea that, will propel the industry forward, right? So it is impossible, I know, to be able to establish relationships with every single person that is working in that industry, of course, where you want to position yourself. But let's find the key players. Let's draw a map of who's who in that particular field. Let's find the key players. Who are the decision makers? Who are the journalists, for example? Who are the influencers? Who are the multipliers? And there are 20, 25 categories that I have identified. And then we go really, really strategically, and we really go and establish relationships with these people. So these are the 3 dimensions of visibility. Now, when I do a so-called PR campaign, I engage all 3 dimensions of visibility, right? This is what, to me, a PR campaign is. And I call it a leveraged story, which means that it's a story that you create and that leverages all 3 dimensions of visibility, right? And it's not about repurposing. Everybody's talking about repurposing content these days. That is not the case. It's like when you are still at the table and you're creating the story, you know that you want to engage different dimensions and the different channels within these dimensions, and you know exactly which audiences you're going to talk to, and you are going to create a message, an angle for each one of these audiences, because it's going to be different. You're going to talk to journalists in a different way than you talk to, for example, your audience on social media, right? So this is what has to be done in advance by design, and then you go out and then you do the thing. You asked, for example, what success looks like, right, for a PR campaign or for a leverage story. Okay, I'm going to tell you maybe two. I try to create a leverage story for myself, 1 per month. So in January, I did 2. And what I'm going to tell you now is going to be a little bit silly, but because the occasion was silly, but I would like to understand, for you and the audience to understand the strategy behind it. So basically, I wanted to start the year with a bang, and I wanted to do something that would get me visibility, because this way, number 1, I get visibility. Number 2, my potential clients and my clients as well, they see that, I can do this for myself, hence I can do this for them as well, right? This is credibility, the embodiment of what you preach. You have to be able to do it for yourself as well. So basically, what did I do, Hannah? It was the 1st of January. I was in Lake Como, where I come from, and I decided, and I heard that every single year on the 1st of January at 11:30 a.m., there's a group of the penguins of Lake Como that jump into the freezing lake. So I decided, and I found online articles about this thing for every year. So for this occasion, so I was like, okay, certainly this is covered by the press. I'm going to go as well. I'm going to be covered by the press. Okay, so what did I do? I went and I covered, and I was there on the beach, and I saw journalists immediately. I mean, journalists are, so to say, my clients, have been my clients for the past 15 years. So I went up to them and I delivered the story that would stand out, because I was the only one that wasn't from there. I mean, I'm from that village, but actually I've been living abroad for 20 years. So I said that I came from Zurich. That was a highlight for them, right? So I had the message, I delivered the message for them. A few hours later, I was already in the press. And a day later, like I was, in print as well. Then when I was going into the lake, I covered the whole, immersion, so to say, in the freezing lake with my phone. I went into it with my phone. And that created social media content that went viral on some platforms, and then got me so many likes like crazy and so many DMs. That was incredible. And that was my own channels. At the same time, at the lake, there were hundreds of people that wanted to see these 10 penguins that would jump into the lake. So I got visibility, offline visibility, in front of hundreds of people for myself as well, let's say, right? And these are people, and so that was part of the network. And then I was able, because I know a few people, there are VIP contacts of mine that, are used to jumping into freezing lakes. So I was able to, let's say, reactivate the contact with them, nurture the relationship. And that led to further opportunities. So these are a couple of things that I was able to do. But let's say there were more as well. I don't want to, be too tedious and go into the nitty gritty, but it's about knowing from the beginning which dimensions of visibility you're going to engage, which channels and which audiences you're going to talk to. And every single one of them will have a different message, will have a different angle, right? So this is what, and I did something similar 2 weeks later then at the World Economic Forum as well, in which basically I hosted, moderated a panel. The story was very similar, covered by multiple influencers, covered by the press and so on. And you have to know from the beginning. So this is a leverage story. This is like a really, I would say, a personal PR campaign. Yes, sorry for the long answer, but I got really excited.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. I really love that. That's incredible. It took you just very few, a day or so for you to be able to get into the newspaper just because you covered that special story, which is incredible. And I love that you shared strategies on making a list on the journalist, on maybe the TV stations you want to be on, or maybe some certain other PR platforms that you want to be on. I think that is such a good thing to be able to have a list, and then from there start looking at who are the key stakeholders, who are the people that you need to know. And when we talk about PR as well, relationship is so important, isn't it? Honestly, because everything usually kind of begins with building relationship and looking at how we can help one another. I know you talked about that in terms of super connecting, networking. It's so important. And then after the networking, how do you build strong partnerships? How do you maintain that? How do you follow up again, which are really, really important. Thank you so much. So much to unpack, with those great tips that you're sharing. We are loving it. Thank you, Jessica. You're amazing. And so, there's a question for you. How do you stay updated on the latest trends and best practices in personal PR? And what resources do you basically rely on to stay informed?
Do you know what? That is a good question, but at the same time, there's nothing that, if you really want to be informed about personal PR, the only person that you can follow at the moment is me, because nobody's talking about personal PR.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. But you can definitely follow PR people. So you do the public relations trends. There are influencers that talk about it. There are institutions as well, like organizations that talk about it. But I think that, it's more fun to follow people than to follow organizations. And this is one of the reasons why I decided to go and to found Personal PR. Then you can certainly follow people and organizations, I would say mostly influencers, when it comes to personal branding as well.
Yes.
Important, definitely. And and there are also, thought leaders that talk about thought leadership. So you can follow like these people separately, or if you want to just follow one person that covers everything, you're welcome to follow me.
So good. Yes, we are definitely following you, Jessica, for sure. I was going to ask you about, the kind of maybe services that you offer so that people get to know your services should they want to work with you. If you can just share that with us.
Yes, of course. So I have the Personal PR Mastermind. And it's a 6-month program because there's so much to do, absolutely. And but the results that you get are amazing as well. Once you start to go into third-party channels, like my students are getting amazing results. Some of them are multiple TEDx speakers. Some of them, are columnists in renowned publications, and they have published books as well. They're speaking at conferences, like big conferences as well. So so once we really are super clear on what is it that we are offering, what our breakthrough idea is, then we can just go out and then we will find a way that is newsworthy for different third-party channels. Then it's actually very easy to do. So this is what I do in the Personal PR Mastermind, and then I work with people one-on-one as well.
Fantastic. That sounds awesome. And I'm going to be sharing Jessica's link in the chat. So do get in touch if you want to elevate your personal PR, especially we are now sort of like 2 months in for the year. So you still have enough time for you to actually raise the levels if you definitely want to improve and increase and elevate within the PR industry. Absolutely. And so we do have another question. Here we go. So what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out in PR and looking to build their personal brand and establish themselves as a thought leader?
Yeah, very good.
Mhm.
Okay, if you're just starting out in personal PR, I would say yes, your personal brand and your thought leadership have to be in place. And
Mhm.
when it comes to personal branding, we should have three things, Hannah. Number one is our values. We should be clear on our values, 3 to 5
Yes.
values that we're really, really clear on, and that really appear. Um, are clear whenever we make an appearance. Own channels, third-party channels, networking, they
Yeah.
always need to be clear. Yes. And then I would say our personal brand story, which is our origin story, our hero's journey. So basically, why are we doing what we're doing, right? And that leads us to our mission as well. So why are we doing what we're doing? So the past and then the future as well. What is it that we want to, achieve with our profession? So I would say these three ingredients need to be in place. Absolutely. Then when it comes to thought leadership, certainly it's about your breakthrough idea. So what is an idea that is truly yours, as we said, that you had and nobody else could have had, but at the same time that is relevant for your field as well, right? I have
Mhm.
a whole process in order to find your breakthrough idea. It's like a 1.5 hour process that I take people through. But maybe, something that you can ask yourself is, what is my breakthrough idea? What is my addition to the conversation, to the body of knowledge of my field? And why was it me who had that idea, right? And once you're clear on this, then I would say then codify your intellectual property. So create frameworks around
Mhm.
your breakthrough idea, a model, a framework, a methodology around your breakthrough idea. Acronyms are great, for a breakthrough idea, to explain your breakthrough idea. So yeah, these are, I would say, is the really, really bare minimum when it comes to personal branding and thought leadership.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And I wanted to kind of switch it up a little bit and just ask you a very fun question. This is what I do for my guest. So I wanted to know, what would you actually share with your 16-year-old self? What would you actually tell your 16-year-old self?
Uh-huh. Wow, I would tell her to start networking as soon as possible, because I
Right.
started networking like really seriously,
Hmm.
and let's say also globally, and really becoming a super connector, like becoming the convener as well, starting throwing events and so on, when I was about 30, which was quite late, right? And
Hmm.
sometimes I'm like, oh my God, if I had already started at the age of 16, where would I be now with all of the
Right.
connections that I would have made? Of course, we didn't really have social media back then, but
Hmm.
we already had telephone numbers, of course, but we already had mobiles, right? So a couple of things would already been possible back then. So
Mm.
yeah, sometimes I dream and ask myself what would have happened, where I would be today if I had already started 14 years earlier with networking.
Absolutely. And so what do we do with that network once we've received it? We've been connected to, particular people that we want to be connected to. Because I always say, like what you said before, have a list of someone or some people that you want to connect with and understand the reason why you want to connect with them, so that you have a clear understanding of exactly what you want from them and what you are also willing to offer them. So what would you say in terms of after the networking and the connection, what is the next call of action?
To me,
Hmm.
networking is all about adding value
Yeah.
without expecting anything in return.
Hmm.
And I add value basically to everybody. Whenever I meet somebody, I immediately add value to them, and I keep adding value to them. And I have thousands of people in my network, and I keep adding value to them. Maybe not everybody on a let's say individual level, because it's
Yeah.
impossible, of course. But I have so many groups. I have hundreds of communities that I started, and I managed to put everybody in at least one of the communities. So I connect them with other people, and then I throw events regularly for my communities, not for each one of them, because otherwise, it would be like hundreds of events every single month. But then I have like meta events, so to say, in which I bring together different communities as well. So yes, it's all about adding value and expecting nothing in return. But let me tell you, it will certainly come back. And I'm not even doing because I know I'm not doing it because I know that it will come back anyway. Like I know that it comes back anyway, but this is not what I'm doing. It's because I genuinely like people and I genuinely want to help them, right?
Mm.
So this is what, to be honest, helped me become recognized as a global super connector, because I didn't have any expectations. I wasn't after anything, right? I was just enjoying the company of people, just enjoying bringing people together. And this is where you have this detachment. You're not, so to say, desperate because you want something from them, right? So networking should be a lifestyle. I always say it should be just a lifestyle, the way you go and brush your teeth and shower and exercise and so on. Networking should be like that hour a day in which you connect to people. And you will see, I mean, the results are going to be amazing if people don't perceive that you're after something.
Absolutely. Indeed. And so how can people actually get in touch with you? Share your link and let us start, getting in touch with you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm on YouTube with the Personal PR Show. And then I'm on Facebook with a group that is called Personal PR. And then I'm on Instagram as well. My name there, my handle there is JFab, Jessica Fabrizi, JFab .PPR, which stands for Personal PR. So these are my main handles.
Or stuff. So we wanted to ask about an inspirational advice for those who are thinking of birthing their vision. They might have something in them and they want to give birth to this idea. And, what inspirational message or encouragement can you actually give them?
I hope you agree, Hannah. I don't know, but I would say something that I already mentioned like about half an hour ago, which is the motto of me and my team. We just say, just freaking ship it. JFSI. So just ship it. I don't think about it too much because you can, of course, you don't want to ship something that is disastrous, of course. But once it's a minimum viable product, a minimum viable something, content even, then ship it and then you will get feedback. It's important to get feedback. It's important to go out there and test, right? It's okay to fail, but we want to fail fast. And then, of course, then we want to correct course. Absolutely. But it's all about getting feedback because we're in the game of working with people, right? So it's people that determine, it's our audience that determine our success at the end of the day, right? So we need to get to know them. How can we get to know them if we are not proposing anything to them? So we have to ship something to them to test it, see what their reaction is, and then we can tweak, right? And then we can iterate, and then we can figure out what we need to figure out. But I would just ship the thing first.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you so much, Jessica. It's been a tremendous pleasure having you on the Birth Your Vision podcast. You've been an amazing guest. You've shared so much nuggets with us today. I've taken notes myself and I'm going to be putting a lot of things in place. And, it's been such a great honor. I hope you've actually enjoyed the process. How have you found the process being a guest on the show today?
So much fun. Oh my God. So much fun. You are a great interviewer, Hannah. The questions were amazing. And this platform as well is a lot of fun too. StreamYard, I've never used it before. I've heard of it, but never used it before. So it was a great experience for me, so enriching from so many different angles. Yeah, so congratulations for this amazing show. And my audience definitely should follow you in general, not just because I have been a guest. They should really follow you regularly. I will certainly do so.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jessica. And yes, to all our guests, thank you for tuning in and joining us today. If you want to kind of be part of our subscribers list, do go on the show notes and definitely join us and be part of all the updates and more information in regards to the next podcast episodes. And also, I wanted to kind of thank my wonderful guest for being on the platform today. She is phenomenal. All our information and details is in the chat, so do make sure that you do connect with her. And so do jump on our, directories and also like, rate, and review the podcast as well. Thank you to all our followers who was actually leaving some amazing comments. I'm truly honored and definitely just grateful to you all. And so until next week, I look forward to bringing another amazing guest into your living room, into your space to share their nuggets about business, life, and also how they've been able to give birth to their vision. So until next week, take care, have a great time and a great evening. Bye, everybody. Bye, Jessica. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you so much, Hannah, and everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.